So we were working with the squaring function, which is f of x equals x squared. But now we're going to soup it up a little bit, and we're going to think about transformations like we learned in chapter 2. And so we have a new form. Sometimes they call it the vertex form. Sometimes they call it the standard form. It just depends on the book. But you have f of x, and we're going to write it like this. A and then parentheses x minus h squared plus k. All right, this is a great form for graphing because it tells you all about the transformations like we learned in chapter 2. First of all, the vertex is at hk. So you can just look when it's in that form, you can just look and you can see what h is and see what k is, and you'll know where the vertex is. The axis of symmetry, that is the line x equals h. So those two things are helpful, and sometimes they ask you for those. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the parts of the form. The a. If a is greater than 0, then it's going to be a right side up parabola. If a is less than 0, meaning it's negative, it's going to be an upside down parabola because that's going to be a reflection about the x-axis. Okay, if the absolute value of a is greater than 1, that's going to be a stretch. Okay, and if the absolute value of a is between 0 and 1, that's going to be a shrink. So it's following what we've talked about with the transformations, but we're just going to, in particular, look at parabolas and how it affects those. H is the horizontal shift. Okay, if h is greater than 0, then it's going to go to the right. So an example of that would be like f of x equals, you know what, I don't want to write it there. I'll run out of room. Let me write it underneath. F of x is equal to x minus 2 squared. That is going to shift 2 units right. 2 units right. If h is less than 0, it's going to go to the left. So an example of that would be if you had f of x is equal to x plus 3 squared. That's going to go 3 units. It's going to shift the whole parabola 3 units to the left. Now, why is that? Because you have x minus a negative 3. Do you see it? And so that h is less than 0. It's negative. But students often get confused on this because of the addition sign. So you have to remember the form, that it's x minus h. Sometimes I tell students, think the h and think opposite. Opposite. This is a word I'm making up, but it's the opposite of what you think it's going to be. So when it says x minus 2, you're actually going to the right. But when it says x plus 3, you're going to the left. Okay. The K represents the vertical shift. Up and down. Now, if k is greater than 0, it's going to shift up. And if k is less than 0, it's going to shift down. So this one works the way you think it's going to. So if you have x squared, I'm sorry, let me give it a name, f of x equals x squared plus 5, it's going to shift up 5 units. But if you have f of x equals x squared minus 7, it's going to shift down 7 units. Okay, so I think of the K as keep the sign. If it's positive, it's up. If it's negative, it's down. Whereas H, it's the opposite. Okay, so that's my little memory technique. I hope it helps. I think that's all we have for this one. We're going to do an example in the next slide.